episode of Video Game Logic. Today's show was recorded on April the 2nd, 2019. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, someone who I do love to grind on.
Oh my, caffeine rage? I need an adult?
Yeah, I changed immediately after you said back to the old grind on what I had in my mind, because that was much better. Anyways, on today's show, we will of course be discussing the games that we have played this week. Serial swatter Tyler Barris was sentenced to 20 years for the death of Kansas man shot by police. BioWare doesn't see the value in articles tearing down Anthem's development. Valve focuses on larger artifact issues, not shipping updates in the immediate future. We'll have our weekly community corner where we discuss game night and next week's plans, as well as a Steam discovery queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rage.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing all right. Had an eventful day. Got all sorts of new banking stuff, so you're very lucky to have a podcast this week.
Indeed. Although, like I said before, if you wanted to take the night off, that's fine. I could just go play more Satisfactory. Hint, hint, for my big only game this week.
Oh, boy. Well, you found your new crack.
Well, we'll talk about it.
Is that leading us into games we played?
I guess we could just go ahead and jump in. I guess I could go first, too, if you want me to, but it doesn't.
If you really want to jump in, you can. But I did have a slight rant to lead you in.
You could go ahead and go first. We'll stick with tradition. You go first.
Okay. So, my rant's going to be a little bit later. First, we have Door Kickers Action Squad, a action shooter, tactical shooter, or shooter game. It's weird, and I'm not convinced it's bad. It's just one of those games that is definitely not for me, because whenever I want to be going into a more tactical strategy situation, I don't want it to be, very fast-paced action platformer. And that's what this is. It's a very weird departure from the original Door Kickers, which was a top-down. It was real-time tactics, but it was real-time with pause. Sort of, how FTL did their sort of thing, where you could pause and fill out your... It was essentially the tactics mode or the planning mode from the original Rainbow Six series. Sort of like how Frozen Synapse also did it. Door Kickers also did something very similar to that. And the thing is that to go from that to an action shooter while still having a very, very quick kill times and very tactics oriented, there's definitely a way to approach this level intelligently, and then there's the gun-ho, kill everything route. It's just so off-putting to me because of that I didn't spend a lot of time with it because, well, for one, it feels like it's more focused on co-op gameplay. And yes, it has online co-op, but it feels like this is one of those games that is meant to be played couch co-op, you and your buddy against the crime syndicate, For those who have never played Door Kickers, you are essentially a SWAT team. Only this time it's essentially the action movie version of a SWAT team. You're going in guns blazing. You're not really slow and methodical like a SWAT team normally would be. Which, like I said, it's not a bad game. I want to emphasize this. It's just not for me. Which feels kind of a shame because it is very interesting. It has essentially a transplanted mobile progression system where each level has, the typical 3 stars, and the 3 stars translates into your progression points. Or your progression points for your equipment. Each class has an upgradable weapon, Some of them are direct upgrades. Some of them appear to be side grades, like exchanging just pure stopping power for rate of fire to be able to get more bullets down range. Because, that's the thing, is that there's only certain weapons have penetrating fire. Otherwise, it comes down to, okay, well, that guy fell. Okay, now the bullets are going past him. It's a 2D action platformer, so it kind of makes sense that you want something potentially that's more of a bullet hose, maybe. But it also comes down to game style, and also a lot of the different guns have different alternate fires, which took me a while to figure out because the game has absolutely no fucking tutorial. It doesn't even tell you the goddamn controls. Well,
that's not helpful.
Highly unhelpful, especially when, the first level that throws you at, it has pretty much an instant death state within the first 10 seconds, if you're not careful. It's just weird that, no tutorial. They talked about having some sort of tutorial during production, but this is a fully released game and there's no tutorial. Which I realize, not every game needs a tutorial, but at the same time, it's just so weird.
Yeah.
And also, since we're talking about weird things on this, there's another weird thing about it where as you progress through the level, and depending on the type of level, there's, so far I encountered 3 different ones in essentially the first world, for lack of a better term. There's the, just clear hostiles, which is essentially just go in and murder everyone. There's hostage rescue, where go in and murder everyone that's fighting back. But if you kill a hostage, it decreases your health. And then there's an arrest warrant, where you have to go in and try to take the big bad down. Somehow alive. I'm not sure how that's supposed to happen, because there were so many enemies in that I wasn't able to progress through it. That's why I said that it feels like it's more focused on co-op, even though it is technically playable single player. It's sort of the Borderlands problem. Yes, technically you could play it single player, but you're not going to have a lot of fun with it, right?
I have fun playing Borderlands single player.
Yeah, but you're also weird.
I was going to say, I am weird, though. So.
But because this is an action game, the way that, as you progress through the level, you're getting, I'm blanking what they call it, but you're essentially powering up a meter for different options that you could call in. A sniper strike, be able to pull out essentially an ultimate weapon. A health pack, or a health pack that you're carrying with you the entire time that heals you immediately. Be able to replenish your body armor, that sort of thing. But in order to do that, it's a very slow process for an action platformer tactics game, right?
Yeah.
Now, in order to do that, you have to hold down the left button on controller. The keyboard and mouse controls, forget about it unless you want to rebind every single thing. Movement is the arrow keys, all right?
Okay.
And then there's jump, which was, it wasn't space, it was something like E. Fire was R, and there's times that you have to both jump and shoot at the same time. Or use your gear was like a T or something. There was a lot of situations where it was like the Bugs Bunny cartoon where he is playing piano and he got to a really difficult portion of the music and his fingers tied together. I just imagine doing that if I was trying to play mouse and keyboard. It's just impossible. Thankfully, they do have rebindable keys, and I highly suggest doing so if you want to play mouse and keyboard. But holding down the left button on the controller essentially causes your guy to crouch down, and then he is fishing around in his pouch for different power-ups to use. And it's very sluggish for what's otherwise a very fast action-packed game. And it's just such a weird thing. It feels like it's one of those games that was meant to be something else, but partway through they made like a prototype of a different type of game. And just kind of threw the two things together.
So it's feels kind of mismatched, or like a mishmash.
Yeah, there's just certain elements about it that's just strange. It's one of those things that maybe if the game had a longer time to death, because you could die within like a second, and there's certain routes on the levels that if you're going in solo, it is a death trap, which makes me worry about the level design later on when the game starts really ramping up the difficulty in theory, where you're expected to shoot one guy as you're throwing a flashbang, assuming that you brought a flashbang because, you have different options for your gear. And it feels like there's a very high possibility of just trial and error gameplay that doesn't feel right for what's supposed to be a tactics game or a tactics action shooter. Like I said, it's just such a weird combination of things that it doesn't feel like it knows what it wants to be. But at the same time, it doesn't feel horrible. That's why I said this may be just a case of this is not for me. All right?
Yeah. Doesn't really sound like it's for me either, based on how you're describing it.
Yeah, which is a little disappointing because, I think it would be a fun co-op game with the right person, but it's also one of those things that you have to gel really well because as you're fishing around in your pack, you have to have your buddy essentially watch out for you. And there is some sort of cover system. If you crouch behind certain items, you are considered in cover and take less damage. But because they're so spread out, at least in the initial levels, the cover system just feels tacked on. And I never used it. I just made sure I tried to keep body armor up, or eventually, if you get enough objective done, either kill hostiles or rescue hostages, which killing hostages is incredibly easy if you bring a guy with a shotgun. You are able to grant yourself an extra life that you just respawn there, but if you die in a bad place, you're immediately going to die again, which is just frustrating,
Yeah. So I just requested a key on Keymailer. If I get it, we'll play together. But I went to go see how much it was, and I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's $14 on it's a $14 game.
We would like it together.
Yeah, I would say if you're a fan of Door Kickers for what it was, stay away from this because it feels like they're going for a completely different crowd, but still wanting to keep the franchise essentially. Like I said, it's just such a weird thing. Let's see. I mentioned the star system. The star system is tied to your equipment, so getting new guns, new gear, new armor, that sort of thing. Requires you to do well on the levels, which they don't ever tell you what the the requirements are. Is it time based? Is it killing all the enemies without killing any of the hostages? Is it not dying? Who knows? They don't tell you. You just are arbitrarily given a number of stars, and you spend those on your items. But also, each class has a level up system attached to it as well, which thankfully it's a shared pool. So the different trees that you unlock is shared, but it seems like the trees do slightly different things depending on the class. Like the one that I used the most was the Breacher, which the difficulty on it was LOL because he was the easiest class.
Okay.
He went in with a shotgun, which instant killed most of the enemy types that I was encountering in the first world. And his alternate fire for the shotgun was a slug shot, which was the only gun I had available that had a penetrating fire. That's why I said that maybe a bullet hose is more important, or at least later on. Because otherwise, when I was taking I'm blanking on the name of the guy now, but I'm going to say assault. He had a machine gun. But the thing is, I was essentially killing one guy at a time, and each guy was taking several shots to go down. Well, whenever you're going up against a group of enemies, that could be rather painful, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like it's a mixture of two games that don't really go well together. Which, like I said, is a shame. It has some humor about it as well. Whenever you go in to the options, there was an option to turn on anti-aliasing. All right. Well,
okay.
It's a pixel graphics game, and it comes up with essentially an error box says, "Okay, this doesn't really do anything." It gives you an option of going high or ultra. They go through all the different AA modes, and it said, "No, really, it doesn't do anything." So there is the humor there that I appreciated. It's just it was so infrequent that it didn't make me appreciate the game anymore. And that was really the only time that the humor popped up, really. I mean, the main trailer for this game is a door going into a police station to file a complaint.
Which I think that's pretty cute. But is the door a hidden character? A secret character? That would be cool.
I honestly have no idea. I do know that there's a bunch of hidden pickups that you get. They're donuts. But I'm not sure if there's a hidden character. Actually, let's see. I just want to see if there is a hidden character now that you mention it. But yeah, it's just I felt a little disappointed by it,
Yeah.
Let's see. Hidden Achievements Guide. Darwin Award. Kill yourself with your own explosives. Bad eyesight. Kill 50 hostages. Terminator. Use 5 extra lives in the same mission. No, I don't see anything about hidden characters, so. There's 4 different characters, so. Maybe there's or 4 different classes, I should say. So maybe there's a hidden character. I don't know. But yeah. It has potential. If I was more in the mood for it, maybe. But at the same time, it's just, it feels like there's, it needed more development time in early access, honestly, because it's just, there's certain things that just aren't refined.
Yeah. That makes sense. All right.
So
what else you got?
So I've been spending some time on my phone, mostly because I was spending a lot of time with Stardew Valley when I was on PC, because I wanted to get through a good chunk of the game. So I downloaded 3 mobile games to try out, and one of them is Plants vs. Zombies 2. And I really wish it was a PC game, because this is, mobile-itis.
Can you not get it through Origin?
I don't think so.
The first Plants vs. Zombies.
Every time I searched for it, it said use an Android emulator. Maybe you're thinking of Garden Warfare?
Maybe. I don't know.
But Plants vs. Zombies is a lane-based tower defense game where you are essentially a guy holed up, and he is using plants to hold off the zombie horde. Well, in this game, you're going on a trip with Crazy Dave from the first game that was the seed seller, essentially the vendor that would pop up every so often. And he built a time machine, and he went back through time. The story is absolutely ridiculous. To be able to enjoy the taco that he just ate. But he spent But it opens up a lot of different worlds to be able to have different themes of zombies and actually plants to toy around with. And the game is fun, but it also irritated the ever-living fuck out of me. For one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a free-to-play game, so of course there's a premium currency, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's an EA game. The premium currency is practically worthless after a few hours.
Why?
Because a lot of items are real money purchases, not the in-game currency premium purchases.
Oh.
And they are,
no bueno.
And they're damn expensive. Yeah, there's, I didn't count up, but I would say a good couple dozen different real money purchases. Things that are direct buying power, like getting an extra seed slot to be able to bring in another type of plant onto a level. Being able to have essentially more powerful plants or alternate plants. And alternate plants and some of them are returning from the original game, like the Torchwood. They're $5 a pop. I mean, damn expensive for what it is.
Yeah.
There's real money purchases to essentially have more runs on the counter for the pinatas, which is the loot boxes that count off twice per day to be able to get seed packets, because it's essentially a gacha game, but not really. As you progress through the different worlds, you unlock the plants in sequence, all right? And there's a dozen different worlds. And after, I would say, just a handful of levels in the first world, which is ancient Egypt, you're given keys to unlock all the other worlds, and then you pretty much pick and choose where you want to go. But it's still going in sequence, so it's a series of linear paths. But it has the gacha game in it, where whenever you open up a pinata, which the pinatas are also in the progression tier, so as you're going along the path, every so often you'll come across a pinata to open up, and they have seed packets in it. And each plant requires so many seeds, and then it could be leveled up to a more powerful version of it with some of the in-game currency. Not the premium currency, the free currency, because, like I said, the premium currency is pretty much worthless after a while. And in some instances, even leveling up the plants is kind of a trap, because they're not big upgrades. But then there's others that are massive upgrades, but there's just some disparity between just how many seeds each plant requires. A good example is like the repeater, which is your pretty standard, or sorry, the pea shooter, which is the very basic offensive plant that you get pretty much immediately. All right.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pea pod that shoots peas. Pea shooter. Pretty much all the things are like puns. Like, there's a plant that's later on that changes the tile that's planted on to be gold. All right. And plants are planted on a gold tile during sunshine, which is essentially your currency to be able to plant more plants. All right. And it's called a gold bloom. And they use a Jurassic Park quote in the article for it, or the almanac for it. There's pea shooters, there's torchwoods, bok choy, which is just punches things.
Nice.
So, the humor of the original game is there. It's so damn off-putting at times, where you're forced to go back to replay some of the levels to grind up some of the currency, because it's one of those things where whenever you have a game that has a lot of microtransactions like this, there's that kind of worry in the back of your mind, or that thought in the back of your mind where you're thinking, okay, how are they tuning this? Are they tuning this on the basis that I'm spending a ton of money, a lot of money, a little bit of money, or are they tuning it for free players for now? And as I go into the more difficult worlds, even though I have unlocked them, I haven't really progressed in them yet, outside of doing one level on each of them to get essentially the starter plant from each of the worlds to have more strategic options. It's that, where is the balance here, all right? And how much grind are they expecting? There's that thing in the back of my mind wondering about that. And also, the pinatas can also give the seed packets that are for the premium plants that you cannot unlock unless you spend $5, which is fucking irritating.
Yeah. And exploitative.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the first time I opened up a pinata, I was like, where's this plant? I don't see it on the progression. And then I went into the almanac and started looking around, because the almanac is not, it's, the plant selection screens are so annoying because they're listed in order that the plant was added to the game. So they're kind of sort of grouped up by worlds at first. And then as they get further and further into the list, it becomes more and more disjointed. There is an option to favorite plants, but that's only so much. Eventually, it's going to create your own mess still. There's no option to say, okay, well, let me just see what I have unlocked. No, because whenever you go to it or start a level, it shows all the plants, including the premium plants, all the plants that you've unlocked that you can't use yet, even if you want to spend currency or just fork over money to be able to play with it. You can't, because it's locked to a map level that maybe another map that's 20 levels into that map. Well, it still shows up, and there's no option to hide it. So yeah, it's one of those things that, I wish this was on PC, right?
Yeah. So the original Plants vs. Zombies Game of the Year edition, is on Origin for $5. I've got it. I don't remember buying it. It might have been one of their free games when they did their giveaways. Mm-hmm. I guess a couple years ago at this point. I've never played 2. I've played 1 on my phone. I liked it. But
yeah, that's the thing, is that I enjoyed it a lot more when I turned off the notification, so it stopped annoying me about, hey, your pinatas have refreshed. Hey, your items in the Zen Garden has grown up. Now, that's another thing, is the Zen Garden. Do you remember the Zen Garden from the first game?
No.
Essentially, it was a tacked on idle game where you just let it set and it built up money to be able to buy upgrades for your plants.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the same sort of thing here, but it's real time now. Or it's not real time, but it has timers associated with it. Now, of course, you could spend, that's actually the premium currency, and probably one of the few things that you could spend premium currency on that's worthwhile. After a while, I should say. As you fill up the garden, it essentially builds up upgrades that you could use for one level. And what the upgrades are, it's dependent on the plant that you get. So as you play, you get seedlings that you plant in the greenhouse or the Zen garden or whatever you want to call it. And then you water the plant, and it starts off a timer. Well, depending on the plant that you get, it could either just be straight up, the free currency, just a marigold, which was the original game, or it could be any of the plants that you've unlocked. And if you choose to use that particular power-up, what it does is whenever you plant that plant in the next level, that you activated that power-up, and you have the choice of when you want to use it. Right now, my Zen Garden's full of plants that I want to hold on to for later. It uses a power effect, and you could also generate this effect during the level. It's called plant food, where as you kill zombies, they'll potentially drop plant food, and you could build up to originally 3. I'm able to do 4 now because I've progressed far enough on one of the maps to unlock the extra slot. Of course, there's also an option to pay to get a 5th slot, because of course there is, right?
Of course.
And it's the same effect and it also is dependent on each plant. So if you plant a sunflower that's been powered up, or you use plant food on it, it spouts out a bunch of sunshine to be able to plant more things faster. Or for the walnuts, it armors them up, so they're a lot tougher. They essentially get a second health bar. For pea shooters, they just launch a barrage of shots. Essentially just a bullet hose or a pea hose. So,
pea hose. Yeah.
Easy, Beavis.
Yeah, sorry. Couldn't help myself.
You never can. But, it becomes almost a too good to use. So right now my Zen garden is completely full and I'm not growing up new plants. But that's also cutting off a potential source of income. And the game just murders you at times on your free currency because leveling up plants requires currency. Like I said, some of the plant level ups is a sucker's bet. Then there's essentially powers that you can use during a level. Rarely you can find them, just a charge of them, but usually it's a pay to use. And some of them are fucking expensive. You could just shoot a bunch of a bunch of snowballs at things to slow things down. You could flick most zombies off the screen, or you could just zap them for continuous damage. As long as you're pressing on them. But the thing is that it doesn't give you enough money to really justify using them outside of a oh shit situation. As a matter of fact, to use like the flick zombie away power up, it's several levels for one use. Unless you get very lucky on the pinata, and then it gives you something like 5,000 gold, right?
Okay.
But let's be honest, the pinata is usually just going to give you seeds that you can't use because it's giving you the damn premium currency or the damn premium plants again. It's just, it feels exploitative at times, but at the same time, the game's doing what I wanted in the first place, which was a game that I could pick up and play for 5 minutes and put down. Because all the levels are fairly short. I'm able to progress slowly through other worlds. And, if it's the first time I'm playing it for the day, I just go back and play one of the easy levels to unlock the pinatas for that level. And the pinatas are world dependent, and they're each individual groupings. So if I want to try to power up my sunflowers, I would go for the ancient Egypt because that's where all the sunflowers come from. Or I should say a good chunk of them. There's a couple sun-generating plants that aren't from ancient Egypt. So, it's just a weird thing. It's exploitive as hell. And if you do poorly, you have to watch a ton of ads to try to catch back up on your money. But at the same time, it doesn't feel as exploitative as some of the other free games I played, right? Because
it sounds pretty exploitative.
Well, I should say,
yeah, I've seen some bad ones.
Well, I should say, it doesn't force you to sit there and watch an ad every 30 seconds like One Finger Death Punch did. So it's a different flavor of exploitation. That's why I said I'm very torn on what I think about this game, because while I wanted, it's providing, but at the same time, it's like there's a lot of, this is kind of shitty moments as well. But the individual levels are at least somewhat fun and provide a fairly decent challenge, at least for the time being, I should say.
Gotcha.
So, any questions?
No, I don't. I probably won't go play this. I've thought about going back to.
Well, I wanted to try it
Plants
out
vs. Zombies a couple of times.
because it kept popping up on. I wanted to try something, and also the game doesn't handle my phone's resolution properly. The newer Samsung phones, they have a notch cut out for the camera, and they kind of hide the camera on the status bar. Well, in this game, you have to play it in landscape mode. The notch is like always in the way for something because it's taking up the entire screen. I mean, I know that there's probably a way to go into the phone settings to manually disable it going complete full screen, but it's just an irritation.
Yeah.
See if there's anything else but I'm not thinking of anything else.
Okay. Well, then what else you got?
Well, I got another mobile game. This one's technically a demo. Rebel Inc. This is from the guys that made Plague Inc. And it plays off essentially the same systems, where you're setting up a government in essentially a new country. All right. The wars of, I'm just going to read this from the store page. The war is over, but we all know that doesn't mean anything. To stabilize the country, you need to balance military civilian priorities to win the hearts and minds of the people, whilst also stopping insurgents from seizing power. So it's a government management game / insurgent put down game. It's really weird. And unique, I should say. But it has a lot of systems coming from Plague Inc., which it's not as clear as Plague Inc. is on what's going on behind the scenes. So there's a lot of times that I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I doing wrong that I'm losing? But at the same time, part of me wonders if it's just because I'm playing essentially what is a demo. Because it is a paid game, but they don't really communicate it all that well on the store page. So a lot of the systems are disabled or hindered. You don't have an option for advisors to bring in. You don't have an option to bring in different leaders to try to go towards more of your managerial style. You're forced down a very particular route. And also, there's only a handful of levels, which I'm not sure how that reflects on the full game. If there's only 6 levels or 6 maps to play on, which are pretty short, I should say. At least the initial 3. Or if the full game has a lot more meat on its bones. But I would say the big problem for this game is really just it doesn't convey the information that you need it to convey. It still has the news pop-ups like Plague Inc. did. Sometimes somewhat humorous headlines, sometimes not, but usually at least a nugget of information going on. In this, the information's there, but it feels like it's almost misleading to listen to the headlines because it doesn't tell you exactly what's going on. It doesn't warn you about potential flare-ups of rebels until it's far too late. There isn't a way to tell that the rebels are about to show up by clicking on each individual province, but that requires a lot of, just sitting there and hitting every single, essentially, country, or I guess I should say state, for lack of a better term, on the map to see, okay, well, what are these guys saying? What do they want? What do they not want? What's pissing them off? And trying to balance that. Plus, you also have to deal with inflation. If you build up too quickly, you essentially inflate your currency and things cost a lot more and it makes people unhappy. And if you do too many things at once, even if it doesn't cause a lot of inflation, it could cause a lot of corruption. And then there's times that you just have to sit there and let things kind of just cool down. And in theory, that would be when you're focused on your military. But because of how you have to deal with the insurgents, essentially you have to kind of just get them in checkmate, surround them with units, and then send another unit in to kill them. Unless you're kind of just shepherding them off to the corner of the map to kill them, you're going to need a lot of military, which requires a lot of micromanagement of that. So you're kind of neglecting your government. And because the game doesn't really tell you the information that you need to be able to manage your government to fill out the gaps of your policies, it's not really, there's that disconnect, you know? Maybe it's just the fact that I'm playing the demo, essentially, for lack of a better term, or I don't have enough time in it to really be able to say, okay, on this level I need to do this, and this immediately. Wait for 6 months. Start training up the military when the insurgents come while I'm doing this, and this. Potentially that's what it is, but that's not a fun game to me, right?
Yeah. It sounds interesting. Although
this feels like a game that should be on PC, honestly, to be able to make more use of screen real estate's probably not the proper term for it, but be able to show more information on the screen.
Yeah. It's weird to think about it because it sounds like you're talking about playing something more akin to not that Plague Inc. isn't a strategy game, but it's a lot more passive. You sort of set up your initial, like, what you want to do.
Yeah, it's almost like an auto game at times.
Yeah. But this seems much more akin to, like some sort of, like, management, like city management type of game.
Yeah, it's essentially taking Plague Inc. and merging it with a semi-real-time strategy, as well as a government management game. Because the same ideas are still there, where it's essentially a simulation. And instead of mutating your disease, you're mutating your government, bringing in more different policies, and trying to just spread out those policies. And they kind of fan out from your central location, your HQ. And as you stabilize different provinces or states or whatever you want to call them, they stabilize to the point where rebels aren't going to show up there. So you kind of slowly shepherd them off. But then they pop up and you have to kind of play whack-a-mole with it.
Yeah. Maybe one of the other... not versions, but I don't know, DLCs or reskins of Plague Inc. Because they had one that they did that was like zombies, and one that was based on Planet of the Apes.
No. That was diseases in Plague Inc. That was DLC essentially. Plague Inc. is a kind of a weird game where, after a certain point, if you go down a particular path, it unlocks a secondary mode. Well, this is essentially the secondary mode for like the Planet of the Apes version, you know, where it mixes a real-time strategy into things. That's sort of what's going on here, but you're managing essentially this little country that's trying to stabilize after essentially a civil war. It's not necessarily a bad game, but it has just a lack of information that it shows you or tells you. And the thing is that there's some things that seem helpful that are actually very counterintuitive unless you go in and build a very particular way. Like foreign aid is one that you would think, okay, getting foreign aid is really good. No, foreign aid's bad. Because if you go down a particular tree with foreign aid, they'll start enacting policies for you for free. Well, you may think that's good, but you also get penalized for the inflation and the corruption that would cause you otherwise, even though it's not costing you any money. So I actually lost a game because I was having to battle corruption so much because the foreign aid was just coming in and trying to help me. Which is it feels like a political statement almost, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they're trying to
Indeed.
make a statement on that or not. Or it's just such a once again, kind of just this weird disconnect. That seems to be the theme of my games this week. It's just a weird disconnect between what the game is trying to do and what it actually does.
Yeah.
So
I do want to try this game. I really liked Plague Inc. I played it a lot.
Yeah,
I played several of the
yeah,
different
maybe
DLCs.
Yeah, maybe since you have more a history of Plague Inc., you'll have a better time with it, because I didn't spend a lot of time with Plague Inc. So a lot of the systems are somewhat new to me as well. But I do know of Plague Inc. well enough, and I played essentially a Flash version of it back in the day. Goddamn Madagascar.
Yeah. You could get them, though.
Mm-hmm.
You always want to start in China or India.
Or Madagascar.
Plague Inc. Yeah. Getting out of Madagascar, though, can sometimes be hard, too. Just depends.
Well, it's simple. You just contact the penguins.
You never want to start in Canada, though.
Yeah, they're far too nice. You never spread.
Most of Europe is a pretty bad spot to start. The U.S. can go kind of 50-50. Anyways, all right.
So, should we move on to the last game that tries to do something but does it poorly?
Sure.
So, Elder Scrolls Blade. It tries to launch a new game. It does it absolutely poorly because the E3 announcement of how to sign up for the beta is completely wrong. Oh.
Yeah, what they said at E3 is all you have to do is register on the Play Store or the App Store. The
iTunes
Store?
Whatever.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Nope.
Nope, yep, you had to do that. And then I think it was because the game got delayed, because it was supposed to go into beta in the fall, and they pushed it back to early spring. The beta just opened up a couple of weeks ago. And I saw that. I was like, oh, hey, I didn't get a notification. No, actually, I did get a notification.
Yeah, I got a notification and I downloaded it. And then I got to play it for approximately 30 seconds. And then I got a splash screen saying, thank you for playing. But in order to make sure that we have a smooth transition to our open beta, we're essentially allowing people in waves. And in order to get past that, you have to actually sign up with your Bethesda account to try to get a key for it.
Yeah.
Which is just utterly fucking stupid. But then again, to be fair, this is Bethesda, so I should have expected something mind-blowingly, utterly fucking idiotic.
Yeah. I've played it. I went and I signed up on, their website and with my Bethesda account and all that jazz. And I got an email on March the 29th. So that's 4 days ago?
Yeah.
I didn't see it until yesterday because we were talking about it during game night. And I was like, oh, I should go check and see. And so I downloaded it. And I've played it for maybe 10 minutes. Not enough to really talk about it. My first impressions are not great, but most of that comes down to the way that it controls, and they don't have the controller support into the game yet. Because they talked about at E3, like, this is going to be available on PC, and I can't remember if they said it was going to be on consoles or not either. They're like, you'll be able to play it with keyboard and mouse, or a controller, even on your mobile device. So I grabbed one of my Bluetooth controllers, which I have 3 now. I grabbed my Xbox One controller, and connected it, ready to play. Couldn't find an option to enable it. It didn't notice it by default, so I Googled it, and it was like, hey, yeah, control support's not in the game yet. And I was like, well, fuck.
Hey, but the store is.
Stopped. The store is in the game, functioning 100%.
Yeah, shame the fun gameplay isn't, based on what you said.
Yeah, the gameplay that I've seen so far is tap on the screen on the ground where you'd like to run over there. Oh, there's some enemies. They're going to line up and fight you one at a time because the combat is not at all fluid like they showed at E3. You have to tap and hold on a person, and it's like a timing system, and if you hold it for just the right amount of time, you do bonus damage. Otherwise, every time you tap, you do an attack, and occasionally they attack you, and you can block with your shield to reduce or eliminate all damage, and you just whack them until they die.
Hang on,
Next guy
wait.
runs up.
You're saying that E3 trailer was a lie?
Yeah, I know, right? Shocking. No, but then the next guy runs up to you and he's like, "Stop right there, criminal scum." Actually, he didn't say that, but he was like, "Stop," and then he tried to fight, or he fought me too, and then I tapped him to death. And then there was something about a queen, and she's really evil, and a monster, and then I went into the town, and an old, scraggly man recognized me, and he was like, "Oh, hey, I remember you, kid." And then you go into the character creator.
You would think
I was not
that
expecting.
you would think that if he remembers you, then you're not just this amorphous blob that doesn't have a defined gender or race yet.
Yeah, which the character creator is very sad and limited. I was not expecting a full-blown, creator with mini sliders and things to drag around and carefully, delicately form your face and everything, but it was very limited. It's like you can choose between the races in, the Elder Scrolls games, and then there are some basic, I think there were 8 heads, and then 8 different hairstyles or 10 different hairstyles, a few hair colors, and that's about it. So it was very sad. Actually, no, you can make your character bigger or smaller. There's like one slider that's like
a slider,
character
wow.
size, and you can slide it from big to small. And it basically makes them taller and slightly fatter to shorter and slightly skinnier. So, and then that's it. The basic tutorial mission pops up, and then it's like, go to the dungeon and fight some stuff, and then it teleports you to the entrance of the dungeon. And I was like, well, that's enough for me for now. I do actually want to come back and play it, but it was late and I needed to go to bed, and I haven't had a chance to play it since last night. So, that's my first 5 to 10 minutes of Elder Scrolls Blades. So far,
Riveting.
It's a mobile game. So yeah. If they get like full controller support and you can actually do something that feels a little bit more like an Elder Scrolls game as opposed to just mobile trash, it might be more interesting. There's also a bunch of the game that's currently not available. Like, the only thing that's available is the story mode. And then after you complete, I think, the tutorial mission, you unlock their town or city builder thing. Which I haven't done that yet, so I don't know what that's all about. But I'll play it more and I can talk more about it next week. Actually, really talk about it. I just haven't had a chance to get any farther than that.
So in other words,
yeah,
I had more fun with it for the 30 seconds that they, kind of tease you with the combat.
Yeah. Whenever that popped up for the 30 seconds, I was like, oh no, please don't let this be it. And so far, I think that's it. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll give it a little bit more of a fair shake when I have some more time to put into it. But did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Not really. It's more just Bethesda, really. I mean, I have a low expectation for you, but still you've managed to go under it. It's astonishing.
Yeah. Indeed. Okie dokie.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to seeing what they do to the next Elder Scrolls game at this point. Or I should say the next full Elder Scrolls game, because, this is Elder Scrolls, but still.
Yeah. So yeah, the only other game that I played this week that is something new to talk about is Satisfactory. This is the first-person factory building and management game that we got very excited about, I got very excited about at E3 last year. Produced by Coffee Stain Studios, the same guys who brought you the wonderful game of Goat Simulator. And then the Sanctum series, which this is an actual real game, not a dumb jokey thing, so you don't have to worry about Goat Simulator being an influence, except maybe on the occasional weird physics glitch that happens. Satisfactory feels very much like somebody went, hey, you know that Factorio game that's pretty popular? What if we do that, but in first person? And then they did
that's
that.
called Infinifactory, isn't it?
I've never seen Infinifactory. Did you just introduce me to something that's going to eat away more of my life?
Or hang on, there's and thinking. It's a Zachtronics game.
Yeah, I found it on Steam. I have never seen this before. It's on my wish list now. $25.
Well, like I
Ooh,
said,
I'll have
it's
to look at that later.
a Zachtronics game. It's essentially...
Although this says it's a puzzle game.
Well, no, Zachtronics is the developer.
Yeah, but no, it says that this is a puzzle game, Infinite Factory.
Yeah, but the thing
Sandbox
is,
puzzle
but
game.
it's the same idea. Where it's
Gotcha.
first person, essentially Factorio, only it's a puzzle game.
Gotcha. No, this is not puzzle. Just let's do Factorio, but in first person. So the game has a lot of similarities, and I'm going to be comparing it in a lot of ways to Factorio because it's the easiest talking point I have. I had some thoughts about Space Engineers initially, but very little of the game revolves around what a huge focus of Space Engineers is, which is turning your resources into ships and things to sort of go and do. Satisfactory is all about that sweet factory efficiency. So there are some pretty major differences though beyond just the first person aspect, and then any gameplay mechanic changes that have to be made to accommodate that. Factorio just sort of drops you in, no real tutorial. There's like the career mode or whatever in Factorio, which has got a few basic tutorials in it, but they're not really all that helpful anyways. And then it just sort of, you just jump into single player or multiplayer or whatever and just go and do stuff. Satisfactory sets you up from the beginning with a bit of a story introduction. There's definitely an overall narrative going on here. You're an engineer for the Fix-It Corporation, working on something called Project... Oh, what was it called? They only mention it one time, and then I think it shows up in some of the emails you get later. Yeah, it's like Project Support or Project Save something.
Project Jockstrap.
Yeah. No, you get the sense that it's like this is like a big deal you're trying to do to like maybe like save the world or something. I don't know. They've said that more story stuff is coming in the future. But you start in like a drop pod in a spaceship and you drop down onto the planet and you get like a little introduction to some stuff as you're dropping down. And then you're given a basic tutorial where the game walks you through your different equipment, teaches you a few basics. Then you break apart your descent craft to create your first base. And everything is based around blueprints. So you have like a base hub that you just create out of a blueprint. And you've got like this little like replicator type thing like from Star Trek that you just like point at the ground and it like builds stuff and things like whoosh out of your inventory and build onto the ground. That's a pretty neat animation that doesn't really get old. And it builds, and then that the hub serves as the tutorial and then sort of your main objective point going forward. So, Factorio just drops you in and is like, hey, the goal is to build a big rocket, figure it out. And this game is like, hey, the goal is to build a giant space elevator and do cool stuff with that. Let me give you sort of step-by-step plans on how to do that. And you start out initially the first few things where you're upgrading the hub.
Step one, righty tighty, lefty loosey.
Yeah. Actually, I think there's a joke about that. There's an AI who is like your overlord, and she reminds you constantly that you're under constant surveillance and that everything you do and build is the property of the Fix-It Corporation, and that hard work will be rewarded.
With cake.
And things like that. It does feel sort of GLaDOS inspired. It's definitely not, I don't feel like it's ripping her off, but it feels like they took that and were like, okay, let's do a little something with this. But anyways, it gives you a bunch of milestones to work towards, and they're initially small objectives like, get this type of resource, build this thing, use it to mine X number of whatever, and dump it in the bin to upgrade the facility. And once you complete, I think there's 6 of them, it's 5 or 6 milestones, you sort of unlock the full functionality of your base, and then it tasks you with building the base for the space elevator. And after you do that, there's no more sort of tutorial stuff, but you do have general objectives and steps to guide you through building the rest of the space elevator and upgrading your base. And this is what I was talking about when I mentioned to you, like, I think this fixes one of the key problems with Factorio in multiplayer, especially with people with different skill levels. if you're in Factorio, if you don't have like perfect communication, two people that are at different skill levels are going to be frustrated in different ways. And like, you know, we ran into this problem where that I'm like off doing all my own thing, and you know, not.
Yeah, 5 seconds later, there's an entire base, and it's like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah, and this throws up objectives for everyone, and you all share completing the objective. And the first few levels are pretty easy to do, and one person can get through them pretty quickly. But by like the second level of the base, stuff starts taking a lot more time. And because it's on screen, like you need X number of resources to put into the next stage of the space elevator, or X number of resources to send back to the mothership. Because you have like a little, I don't know, VTOL that comes and lands on your base, and you put the resources in that for certain upgrades and advancements, and it flies up to the ship and you get them. And then other resources you dump directly into the space elevator to build the next section of it. And you can go view those in their respective locations. But whichever one you choose as your active objective shows up on the screen. And I haven't played it in multiplayer, but it says that everyone shares the same objective, so everyone can see the progress being made. And that just gives you like something easy to talk about. Like, okay, are you working on getting, you know, all of the steel plates that we need? Okay, so you're doing that. I'm going to go start working on getting all of the copper piping we need for this thing. And as you go farther and farther up the tech tree, as it were, or the things get much more complex to build. So, you know, you go from basic components to build it to needing like rotors or pistons, or all the way up to like computer parts and things like that. And each of those things gets more and more complex to do, and you can work together or divide and conquer. And that's something that is much more easy to communicate about and work towards. Just about everything could be crafted in hand at like a workbench, and you can build multiple workbenches around, or you can just use the one that starts in the base. This is probably one of the things that I find the most frustrating. Certain things are tied behind handcrafting. At the very beginning, it's okay because you're, you know, just starting out basics. But once you get to steel, it's like, okay, you need to make steel. How do I make steel? I need iron ore and coal. Okay, well, I can't put two things into the smelter, so how do I make that? There's no tutorial for that part. There's no help. I just finally figured out by scrolling through all of the mini items on the workbench, oh, I have to make this in hand to get enough of these resources to create the foundry, which is like the second level of the smelter, which you can put two resources into at the same time. So some of those things can get a little annoying for me, but getting over the hurdles, you know, figuring it out, once you get that taken care of, it becomes less of an issue. But I think they need to work out some things with like the tech tree flow and how to just sort of improve or reduce frustration. But anyways, having those objectives really helps. There's also like a research section where you go and collect certain materials to be researched, and that gives you additional things that you can build, like med packs and scanner upgrades, weapon upgrades, things like that. Because there are alien life forms on this planet, but it's not in the same way that it's like in Factorio where they're attracted to pollution. You have to keep fighting them. They're just kind of on this planet, and most of the time they run away from you. There's a few aggressive animals that will attack you on sight, but most of the animals are like, oh, what is this weird thing that landed and is belching fire and smoke? I'm going to run away. But hunting down those animals and killing them for their sweet, sweet innards can be researched to give you things. I don't even think your buildings can be damaged. Your vehicles can, but I don't think your buildings can be damaged. But anyways, the animals tend to leave you alone. The map itself, so there's 3 different maps. They're all handcrafted. They're very proud of this fact. So the maps are generally smaller than what you would expect for this type of game, but they do have a lot of detail just that comes from being created. There's little hidden areas you can find, neat little nooks and crannies, and there's ways to exploit the fact that they're relatively small in comparison to a game like Factorio or Space Engineers, where they're procedurally generated and basically go on for forever. You can build, you know, in sort of Minecraft style, you can build sky bases and platforms and things like that, and there's lots of mobility options as you work your way around the tech tree. Initially you can just run, but then there's a jetpack you can unlock, there's vehicles you can unlock. You get these like bouncy pads with like goo that you can land in to help propel you around. And then you can always just build gigantic towers of Babel to get up to your really cool sky base.
Well, you're supposed to be building a space elevator.
That is true. And the space elevator is fucking huge. Like,
well, that's kind of the point.
I know that is the point, but like when it was like build a space elevator, I was like, oh, okay, well this will be lame. And then you plop it down, and it's a really big building at its base, and you're like, oh, that's cool, I guess. And then you build the first, like, beyond you build like the first stage of the space elevator, and you look up, and there's this giant like sky hook that comes and drops the cable, and it like grabs on, and you can see the space elevator from anywhere on the map. Like if you build your base,
that's actually a really handy landmark.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a really good landmark, because if you sort of center the majority of your factory and base around the space elevator, then you can always find your way back. I mean, it does have like a direction indicator, and you can put down beacons and things to mark stuff to navigate towards it, but there's no map to pull up. There's no mini map. So you only have those little beacon signals to guide you. And if you don't put those down, nothing else is saved. Like nothing else shows up. It gives you an indicator for like your outpost and that's it. And then you can see the space elevator. But let's see. Map. Oh, so the resources, they're always going to be in the same place. The hidden areas will always be in the same place. But the maps are actually really gorgeous. They look much better than I expected. And everything seems logical. Again, it's hand created instead of procedurally generated. So you don't get these weird things where it's like a path going off to nowhere. If you see somewhere and like a path that looks like it's going there, that path will eventually wind around and get to where it logically makes sense for it to do. And I feel like that's a weird sentence to say, but, in this world where that stuff is, so often just randomly created by an algorithm, it is nice to see a game like this where it's like, okay, so I know that path logically is going to lead me down, this mountain somewhere, or maybe around the lake, or over there to the waterfall. And I've only tried out one of the maps. Sort of the basic map is like a temperate climate that's sort of balanced in resources and building space and distances. There's like a tundra map that has got very low biomass, so not a lot of trees and animals and things, but tons of other resources and wide open spaces. And then there's one that's like a jungle that's packed with biomass but less resources and stuff. And the way it's sort of the biomass is your initial power source. You're just burning wood and shit to power your initial generators. And then you move up to like biofuels, which are some of the most efficient fuels for your vehicles in the beginning. The only thing that can run the chainsaw. But once you get to coal power, you basically don't need biofuels anymore. You just base everything around a coal power plant because biofuels are a limited resource, but coal is not. Any of the resources that you mine out of the ground, so coal, iron, copper, limestone, things like that, they're infinite. And then there's just different qualities of them. So you can have pure, which has a 50% boost to its yield, normal, and then impure, which has a 50% reduction to its base yield. And then you just stick miners on top of them. So working your way up through the automation, this game starts to run into some issues compared to Factorio, and I'm not sure if it's more the first-person mechanics stuff or if it's just, earlier in development than Factorio is, and they still haven't quite figured out some of those things. But resource and factory management can be a huge problem. So because you're operating in a 3D space, if you don't build essentially a foundation for your factory and stick to that foundation, things very quickly become unlevel and turn into a huge nightmare mess. And something that seems like it should connect won't, because it's the height is wrong, or the turn is too tight because you have to go around an obstacle for your conveyor belt or something like that. So in your mind, you can be like, okay, this should work. This will be fine, just like a quick thing. And then it's like nothing works. And you have to tear it all down and start over. Because, you don't have level terrain and you've got shit in the way. Whereas in Factorio, you don't have to worry about that. Everything's a flat plane because you're looking at it from directly overhead. But that does allow you to do things like build vertically. The game does encourage you at one point. The computers lady is like, you should consider building a compact vertical factory. And that presents its own set of challenges, but less so than trying to build essentially out in the open around trees and rocks and stuff. So, but that can be frustrating. And I had to tear down a couple of factories because it's like, okay, well, this isn't working because nothing's level and everything's messed up. So then I built something with a foundation, and then I underestimated how much size or how much spacing everything needed. So then it was too small, and I had to tear it down and make it even bigger. And I mean, that is one of those things that you can just kind of learn, but it would be nice if they gave you, again, some more information about how big something is. Like, it tells you that the foundation pieces that you can use to essentially build the floor of your factory, it tells you how big those are. But it doesn't tell you how big anything else is. So you just kind of have to learn, like, okay, this particular thing is like 4x4, and this one is, 2x1 or whatever. But until you actually figure that out, you're going to be a little bit lost on what you're doing. Conveyor belts are really useless for long distance travel. They're very slow. Very resource intensive compared to using a vehicle for transportation. And that's not something that the game makes very clear. And that's another one of those things I learned through trial and error. Just conveyor belts are super duper slow. Because initially I was trying to build a coal power plant. And I was like, well, I'll just ship coal all the way from over here. It's only like 600 or 700 meters from my base, which not super far, a little walk, but not super far. And I just could not keep up. I couldn't output enough coal to keep up with what I needed to meet my power requirements. And even upgrading to the maximum conveyor belt level that I had at the time wasn't doing it, and that cost me a shit ton of resources. The basic conveyor belts are really cheap, but even the level 2 conveyor belts, you need like upgraded resources, which have to go through like 3 different processes to get to that level. And by then you've got, tons of power and time invested in them. So it's not cheap. So then I just gave up on that, and I started researching towards trucks and building trucks. There's a few different vehicles in the game. There's a tractor, which they call the sugar cube, like on the forum, because it's like just a perfect little cube. And then there's an actual truck, which is the one that you can see in any of the videos or demos that they've shown off about the game. It's like a 6-wheeled truck. And then there's a train, which I haven't gotten to yet, so I don't know how that works. And then there's a sort of exploration buggy, which has a very small inventory but can carry 2 passengers. And it's a lot faster than anything else. The vehicles are interesting. So, I was wondering how, because they show them being automated in the demo, and I was wondering how that was going to work. And what you do is, once you've got 2 truck, well, I mean, really, you can do this anywhere. You could just create like a weird loop out in the middle of nowhere if you wanted to. But basically, once you've got a destination figured out, or a route that you want to go on, you get in the truck and you turn on mapping mode. And you drive the route the first time that you want the truck to take, and it shows up behind you as like little arrows on the ground showing you which direction that it goes. And you make the path, and then you get out and you just turn autopilot on. And then it follows the route that you created. And I was worried that it was going to have issues, but actually it does really well. It does everything that you did to a T repeatedly. So, you crash into a rock and it bumps sideways or something like that. It will do that every single time. The vehicles don't take damage from just like bumping into rocks or trees or even hitting creatures. Even the largest creatures in the game just get bowled over by the vehicle. I assume that's on purpose. That way it doesn't wreck your carefully designed AI system every time an alien spawns in the path of your truck. But it's pretty neat the way that it works. Although you run into problems if you try and set trucks up, more than one truck on the same route, because there's no way to be like, okay, I've already created this route, assign truck to route. It doesn't do that. You have to create another route for the exact same truck and hope that you get the timing right and hope that you don't deviate too much from it so the timing doesn't get messed up, because they'll crash into each other and then it's all fucked up and you have to go manually reset it. So that's very frustrating. But thankfully the resource storage on the trucks is massive. The tractors is the exact same size as one entire storage container, which is 24 stacks of resources. And the truck is the same as the double container, which is 48 slots of storage, which is a shitload. So one truck can pretty effectively handle a route by itself, at least with the scale that I've been building so far. That might be an issue later on, but I don't know yet. So let's see. Anything that I'm missing? Generally, I like the game. It can get frustrating, and it's starting to get frustrating. Oh, okay, here's the one big con that I have, and I think this has to go, again, with just the resources and not having quite enough time to sort this out yet. There's no way to move things around automatically. Like, that's not a good way to say it. So in Factorio, you have conveyor belt sorters, and you have this entire logistics system you can set up as a way to, you can store a bunch of resources in one place, but they can get to different places via different kinds of automation. There's drones. You can set up a logistics system on your conveyor belts to be looking for, an iron plate or something. And it's like, if an iron plate goes up and or shows up, it needs to go left, and everything else can go right. Like stuff like that. There's none of that in Satisfactory. So you have to set up every single factory line for one single purpose. You have to, if you want to go from iron ore to iron pipes, then you have to set up a whole line to just make iron pipes. If you want to set up a line, to do a more complex resource like reinforced steel bars, you have to set up everything for that whole line to make the steel bars. You can't bring in resources from anywhere else and just have like one of the assembling machines, grab the resources from different places. You have to start all the way at the beginning with iron and coal, smelt those to steel, then run the steel through and create steel plates, and then mix the steel plates with concrete, which you also have to set up a line to make the concrete, to make the steel, reinforced steel bars. Like you have to do that for every single thing. It has to have its own individual line. So it's not like you can make, a steel line like I would do in Factorio. Store all the steel in the resource network, and then anything that needs steel can just pull the steel from the network via either drones or a complex setup like conveyor system around the base. So you wind up with this massive sprawl that you can't do anything about because there's no way to mix or match or combine networks. You can take multiple conveyor lines and combine them into a single conveyor belt, but there's no way to sort it. Everything just goes on to the same conveyor belt. And there's no way to control that. It's just whatever you feed into it is going to go onto the same line. So that is extremely frustrating because my base, once I got past the first couple of levels and started getting to the complex things like being able to build rotors or reinforce steel plates and things like that, it's like, okay, well, my base is nowhere near big enough. I'm not going to try and smush all of this into my building. So I went, my base is at the bottom of a cliff. So I built a massive tower to the top of a cliff and a huge ramp to get trucks up there. And I'm currently in the process of building this huge, 1 by 1 kilometer factory complex just so that I have plenty of room to expand. It's massive, but I've got to figure out the sprawl, and then the power requirements are going to start getting out of hand. So that's a big problem I have with it. There's no way to really minimize anything. Everything has to have its own separate line if you're going to create something. And that gets a little old. But otherwise, I think Satisfactory is intended much more to be a multiplayer game than a single player game. I mean, you can definitely play it single player and have fun. There's plenty of people in the subreddit who have done that. I've been enjoying it single player. But there starts to be a really big ramp up in resource costs for all of the upgrades, and then a big ramp up in complexity for what you have to design factory wise to create those items. So having more people would make that process go a lot more smoothly, because I'm having to do all of the scouting, all of the setting up my sort of bases to bring in resources that aren't nearby my initial factory complex, building, a giant base, building out all these systems, getting everything put together, then putting all the resources in to, complete the upgrades and unlock the next level of the thing. Space elevator or my hub base. So I do think it's maybe not intended to be played multiplayer, but they're sort of giving you a subtle nudge from a gameplay perspective, like, hey, this would be easier if you had a friend. And like I said, I think some of the systems they've implemented into the game make that easier to work with someone than in Factorio, but, it's still pretty complex. But I like it. It's, it's only currently on the Epic Store. It's supposed to be coming to Steam in a year. It's one of those timed exclusive deals. I wouldn't have bought it. I got a review key for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be playing this right now because I don't buy games on the Epic Store. I just get the free ones. I might, if they don't do some sort of, what would it be? It wouldn't be cross-platform because, we're all on PC. But if they don't segregate the multiplayer lobbies, then I probably won't buy it on Steam. But if they do segregate it and there's other people who want to play and there's no way to get around it, like the game hosts servers within itself. I don't know how to say what I'm trying to say. But, you create the servers in-game. It's not like you go create an external server and then connect to it. So I don't know if there's a way to do that once it does come to Steam or GOG or something. But, if we have people in the community who want to play it when it comes to Steam, I would probably buy it on Steam and play it there. But I'm enjoying it. I'm going to play through it some more. Eventually, I'll probably max out everything that's available in early access right now. There's more stuff coming. Like, there's only, I think, 5 levels it's 4 or 5 of the space elevator in play. There's supposed to be 9 total. So I'm not exactly sure where they're going to go with that, but there's resources on the map that I found and that people have been saying on the forums, like, this doesn't do anything yet. The resources are on the map for future content. So I like it. If you're into this sort of game and you don't have a problem with the Epic Store, as in, like, you listener, I know you have problems with the Epic Store, Rage, but if you're into this, if you're into this sort of game and you don't have problems with the Epic Store, I would recommend it. There's a shitload of stuff to do here. But if you don't like this type of game, or if you do have major issues with the Epic Store and their business practices, then, probably not for you. And that is A-okay. So yeah, that is what I have played this week.
Well, I would say that would be a satisfactory rundown of it.
Hi-yo. Well done, sir. I need to take a drink. My throat is a little sore after that. I sound better this week, but I still have, I'm in allergy season, so I'm going to be suffering for months. Just quietly suffering.
Yeah, get over it just in time for the autumn one.
Yeah. Yay. So, are we good to move on?
Yeah, I've had a rest.
Okay, well then I'll let you take the lead on this next one.
Do you want to rest?
Yeah, I'll take a couple of minutes. Sweet. Then let's dive back in to our first news topic of the night. I'm on the wrong place on the sheet.
Serial swatter Tyler Barris sentenced to 20 years for death of Kansas man shot by police. So, this was back in November?
Didn't this actually happen like late 2017?
I thought, or maybe some news about it happened about it in late last year, and that's what I'm thinking of. Actually, I should have checked to see when he originally.
Andrew, December 2017.
Okay, so I guess there was a year anniversary or something that I'm remembering then. So. Back in 2017, boy, how time flies, huh?
Yeah, I know. That only feels like 47 years ago right now.
But at the same time, just yesterday. A bet between two gamers over a $1.50 gun or something. Well, this was Call of Duty, so yeah, who knows, right?
Right.
There was a squabble between the two of them. one threatened to kill the other one, and the other one said, okay, come get me, and gave his old address. Well, the one that produced the death threat contacted this jackhole, who is known to be a serial swatter. Well, he called in a rather ridiculous sounding 911 call. The local police showed up, claimed that the guy that came out on the porch went for his waistband, which I've seen the video, and I would say is dubious at best for that claim.
Yeah.
Because they shined a light on his face, and, he kind of flinched and he was shot. Shot and killed, I should say. Well, he pleaded guilty, and, he got the book thrown at him. 20 years. I mean, that's a hell of a lot for essentially, I guess that'd be felony murder. I actually didn't see what the actual charge against him was.
That's a good question.
Let's see. One count of making a false report resulting in a death. He admitted to years of swatting and the act of falsely reporting. He agreed to serve 20 to 25 years in federal prison as part of a plea agreement. So this was a plea deal that he did, that he's pulling 20.
Yeah, I suspect he was facing potentially life.
Life or death.
Well, California doesn't have the death penalty.
Yeah, but they were wanting to extradite him.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if Kansas has the death penalty. Does Kansas have the death penalty? Yes, Kansas does have the death penalty.
So there you go.
Yeah. So at the very least, he was probably facing a lot more than 25 years. Mm-hmm. Probably close to a life sentence. Or death penalty for that.
Yeah, okay, well, he, hang on, how old is this guy? They keep talking about the guy that got shot, but.
I think, I'm kind of pulling this from memory, but I think he was in like his mid to late 20s. The guy who actually did the swatting, Tyler Barris.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. The way the article is written, it's a little confusing because they go back and forth.
Yeah.
He, I mean, it's essentially a life sentence because you're in, prison for 20 years. So, you're not with the advancement of society. So the world is going to be a completely different place when he comes out. But then again, he was an actual, absolute idiot about this. He got on Twitter bragging about it while he was sitting in jail. I mean, really? Right?
Yeah. I mean, people can be really dumb. Also, I mean, this is the first time that there's been a conviction like this for this type of...
Oh, this was the first time that there was a death linked to gaming swatting. I'm not sure if it's the first death to swatting period, but I know it was one linked to a video game dispute. And boy, did that, the link to gaming and swatting on this really blow up for a while, huh?
Yeah. I mean, he could have thought, what's the worst could happen? I'll be fine. I won't go to whatever. I won't go to jail. There's no precedent. Well, I don't know if he would have had this thought. He seems like a combination of like a really smart but also a really stupid guy. But, I don't think he probably went, there's no legal precedent for this. I'll be fine. But they set a legal precedent with him, so.
Well, probably also, he saw it as harmless because of how long he did it and no deaths resulted. Probably some very soiled underwear, but still. No deaths. Let's see. He has false calls committed between 2015 and 2017. So he was active for a couple of years in Ohio, Nevada, Illinois, Indiana, Virginia, Texas, Arizona, Massachusetts, Missouri, Maine, Pennsylvania, New Mexico, Indiana, Michigan, Florida, Connecticut, and New York. So, he had a few states.
So I'm just doing some further research on this. He has not been sentenced yet. So this was the plea deal that he made, but the judge can reject it.
Yeah.
And change his sentencing, at which point in time it goes to trial.
Yeah, so this may not be the end of the line for it.
Looks like he's being charged on 51 federal charges of various degrees, but I mean, he's being charged with second-degree murder. Yeah, second-degree murder. I'm just scrolling through another article looking at this stuff.
I'm surprised they didn't go after the kids that. Well, I use the term kid, but everybody is of legal age. But I'm going more on how they acted. But the guys that had the argument in the first place, I'm surprised nobody went after that.
Well, I mean, they didn't actually commit the crime.
Yeah, true, but
I guess they could be charged as some kind of like conspiracy or something.
Yeah.
But so, and I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I do understand a few basics about this. And basically, first-degree murder is premeditated and carried out with malice, whereas second-degree is, well, I mean, it's not. You had an action which could lead to someone being murdered, but that wasn't the original intent. But it's different from manslaughter, because manslaughter is completely accidental.
Yeah, like manslaughter is complete oopsie. Second degree is kind of oopsie.
Yeah, second degree is like you were committing some sort of crime and someone died as a result of that crime, but the intent was not to kill someone, so you don't get first degree murder.
Yeah, then you start getting into weird things. And I said the term earlier where you were the accessory to a crime that a murder was committed on.
Yeah. Although I think if you're an accessory to murder, you can be charged just as harshly as the person who committed the murder.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's an interesting YouTube channel I watch called Legal Eagle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a guy who has been a lawyer for a number of years. He teaches law at, I forget what law school. But anyways, he's a law professor. And he talks about this,
Yeah, the felony murder
He's
rule.
got like a 101, YouTube series where he talks about some basics. And then he'll do things like he'll go through like movies and TV shows and talk about in what ways they're realistic and what ways they're not.
He probably turns on CSI and his head explodes.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. Law and Order, he goes through Law and Order a lot episodes. And sometimes they do a really good job and sometimes they don't. But anyways, yes, I just wanted to, if we do have any lawyers in our audience, I don't know if we do or not, and you want to add to this discussion a little more just because you know more about, the whole legal stuff involved in this, please feel free to write in and expand upon or correct anything that we stated that was wrong. But, to the best of my sort of layman's knowledge, that's what's going on here. So, I don't think there's a ton more to say about it.
It's just more just a follow-up
deal. Yeah, and we're following up to it. So, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, and I have to say that, this kid looks fucking creepy. There's just something about his face, and I'm not sure where it is,
Yeah. I mean, he's got that look to him. I don't know, it's kind of stereotypical or stereotyping, but there is sort of a look that a lot of people who commit crimes like this have,
The dumb motherfucker look?
I hesitate to say white trash, but that might be a little too strong, but I definitely get that vibe from him.
But the shoe fits, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. So, moving on to our next news topic. BioWare doesn't see the value in articles tearing down Anthem's development.
Yeah,
so
this is kind of a big one, especially the article that spawned it.
Right. So, Anthem's a big old mess. We all know that. Kotaku, was it Jason Schreier from Kotaku? Is that who did this article? Yeah, it is Jason Schreier.
One of the few good writers there.
Yeah. So he put together this article where he talked to 19 members from either BioWare's current team or, someone who was working at BioWare while Anthem was being worked on. And he protects their identity. He doesn't go into the specifics, but he said these were all people who either worked on or adjacent to the game.
Also known as investigative journalism.
Indeed. And he went through and just interviewed them a lot and sort of tells the story of Anthem's development from, its conception back in late 2011, early 2012, up to where it got modern day and some of the twists and turns that happened along the way and how it turned out to be such a big mess. And, if you want to go through and read the whole article, I think you should. It's a very good read. To sort of sum it up, Anthem was a disaster because of a combination of industry practices getting out of hand, so things like crunch time getting even worse in the last few years, and a couple of particularly Dragon Age Inquisition's success with, that's the game where that most people in this article were saying, we were doing so much crunch time, there was so much stuff they were trying to throw at us to do, and we didn't think it was going to work, but it somehow did, and so, they took a lot of bad lessons from that game's development. So putting those practices further into use. Mass Effect Andromeda, they lost a lot of key staff members, good key leadership through that whole thing. So a lot of the captains of the ship went missing. So they had very poor or no leadership about halfway through Anthem's development. And then EA meddling with BioWare in a number of ways, constantly moving team members around to work on other games that EA deemed to be more profitable to go at, or to pursue, and then forcing them to use the Frostbite engine, which was not designed at all for this type of game, but not giving them any support to help figure out how to turn the Frostbite engine into something that would work for it. At least not until very late in the game. They were saying it was something like the last 18 months before the game actually released. It was when they finally got EA's full support, and Anthem was in development in varying, not sort of stages, but varying sort of levels of support. Yeah, varying degrees of development for over 7 years. And it was only the last 18 months that EA finally said, okay, now we're going to give you some support and help you. And came in and sort of took over the project and forced it in a direction that BioWare had not originally intended for it. They wanted it to be more... They always wanted it to be a multiplayer game, but something much smaller in scope, just like a 2 to 4 player cooperative game that had a lot of survival elements in it, but not... you didn't have a food meter or a water meter. It was sort of a... man versus nature,
sort of a Monster Hunter without the grand monsters.
Yeah. They were saying that the initial concept is that you were stranded on a planet that was essentially at the the ass end of a black hole, and everything that got sucked up was shot down onto the planet with you, and it caused crazy weather, and there were aliens and things like that, and you basically had to survive and figure out how to escape. And it was a cooperative, focused game. That was the initial intended vision for it. And then some more shooter elements got it added in just as sort of a test by BioWare to see how it would go. And then once they finally got the flight system working properly, they demoed it when, I forget who it was, the EA exec that was there.
The suit.
And he was like, yeah, the suit. And he was like, that's the game that we're making. That's what we want. With like between 18 and 24 months until the game was supposed to launch. And that's what they had to sort of slap together for that first E3 preview in 2017, was based on the one little flight demo that the suit saw. So even though the game was in development for 7 years, there was basically no one at the helm for more than half of that time. And when someone was at the helm, they were not providing good leadership. And EA would constantly come in and like spin the wheel around and be like, okay, that's what you're doing now, bye.
And also they didn't want to take cues from other games in the looter shooter genre once it kind of settled into that. After bouncing around, like 2 or 3 different full games, essentially?
Yeah. They said, and when I say they, the people that Jason Schreier interviewed, said that basically comparing Anthem to Destiny or The Division was like a dirty thing to do. You didn't do that. You would be chastised for that. And they wanted to compare it to Diablo 3, even though this game has very little in common with Diablo 3.
Well, there's loot.
Yep, that's about it. Oh, there's equipment. There's things to equip. That's.
There's classes. There's classes.
Yep, there are classes.
And there's abilities. Not as many, but there's abilities.
But
and you click on things. You click on things. You click them to death.
You do click on a lot of things. And then towards the end of the article, they were saying things like, whenever all these reviews were coming out, we were saying, yeah, this is basically what we were telling all the bosses for years. And they refused to listen to us for one reason or another. It was an EA suit who didn't care. It was a BioWare, upper level manager whose hands were tied, or someone who was so focused on their own vision they just dismissed your concerns out of hand. And they were like, we know, but there was nothing we could do about it if we wanted to keep our jobs and, live. So that was a pretty long summary, but this article is huge. I'd say if you printed it out, it would be, 10 to 15 pages.
Well, it has a very small
there are some
scroll bar
stuff in here. Yeah, it's a very small scroll bar.
Which kind of leads into what I actually wanted to talk about was an article from PC Games In. BioWare doesn't see the value in articles tearing down Anthem's development, which we kind of already highlighted how idiotic it is because they don't want to learn from others' mistakes. In this case, it's their own development team. And I do understand likely part of the reasoning behind this. And you actually kind of mentioned it when you were talking about Satisfactory, or at least at one point, when you were comparing the AI to GLaDOS, is that there's this absolute fear of being considered a ripoff in gaming. Having a similar mechanic or or even the same genre. Gamers are absolutely brutal when the same mechanic or the same general idea pops up several times. Hell, we have entire genres built around a kind of a mocking term for that type of game, also known as roguelike.
Yeah, or the Dark Souls of blank.
Yeah, or the Soulsborne genre. If you want to give a name to that without being completely dismissive, but it's still almost a kind of a mocking, almost. There's that undertone of, well, it's like this, but. Well, for one, that's trouble for trademark and copyright because you start getting some murky waters there, and game development is not cheap, so they want to be safe. Two, they want to be seen as innovative, and you can't really be considered innovative if you're Dark Souls, but you're in sci-fi, and you're in an exosuit.
Right.
That's still innovative, and taking the genre in a different twist because that change of theme allows for different things. But there's still that attachment to your initial idea, and I think that's at least part of the reason, outside of just sheer arrogance of not wanting to learn from others' mistakes, but at the same time, you're not learning. So it's kind of, here's going to be a historical thing, is the space race. Because information was so held back by the Soviet side, the same mistakes were made on both sides, the American space program and the Soviet space program. And because the American space program lagged behind in the early years, for example, the Apollo 1 fire, well, the Soviets knew you do not have a pure oxygen atmosphere in your spacecraft. Well, because that information didn't get out because of all the deaths related to that particular mistake, the Apollo 1 disaster happened. Now, I realize that's a little bit of a grim version of it, but it's the same basic idea that information is not being used to avoid other people's mistakes. And yeah, there's a fine line between trying to avoid being made into, well, this game is just a ripoff of this, this, and this, and learning from the mistakes of Destiny and The Division when making Anthem. You know, there's a rather wide area there, right?
Yeah. No, I can see that mindset that developers have, and that for some reason a lot of gamers have. And I don't know if I don't know if film suffer from this, maybe back in like the 40s or 50s. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the history of it.
I haven't researched that history of it, but at some point
I would say it may be different styles, like Tarantino like action sequence in modern day.
Yeah, but I don't.
But it's not dismissive,
Yeah, I don't hear that in films. Maybe occasionally if something gets overused way too much, but that's a different thing. In terms of like oversaturating something.
The
I
Dutch
think that's a more understandable criticism,
or whatever it was, where you tilt the camera. Dutch angles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where you tilt the camera, and that being overused in like a lot of the early Marvel movies and stuff. But anyways, I think that's a more understandable criticism than just, oh, this thing is similar to this other thing. Like, of course it is. There's trends in industries. There's only so much creativity at a time.
And ideas are not built by themselves. An idea very rarely, it just pops into someone's head without any prompts whatsoever. Ideas are iterations of your knowledge, of your experience, of your skills. And when you're working in the games industry, a lot of your skills are coming from, on a design level, I should say, playing other games and learning from them. So saying something's a ripoff is extremely dismissive.
Mm-hmm.
And BioWare, I think, is being overly defensive about this when they're saying they don't see the value of articles tearing down Anthem's development. I respectfully disagree because, okay, the AAA gaming industry is at a point where they feel like they could do no wrong. I think that's fairly safe to say, especially with the article BioWare said. Their internal culture. But this is a lesson for game development for free for the entire industry. Do not do this. And while the AAA industry will not heed this most likely, unfortunately, the AA's out there, a handful of those, the bigger indie studios, and the indie scene will take this to heart, I think. So yes, there is value for BioWare. Okay, maybe that's true that they don't see the value because they have their head stuck so far up their own ass that they can't see anything except maybe breakfast.
Yeah. My brain just sort of wandered away. I had something I was going to say, but...
sorry, I talked over you there.
No, you're okay. You're okay.
It's just... I think something really has to change in the gaming industry. And honestly, how gamers act in general. Which kind of brings up something that I didn't put on the docket, but r/games shut down for April Fool's Day to address toxicity in gaming. Which... that's not the day that you want to, try to have a serious topic, right?
No, definitely not.
I think it got lost in kind of the message. Or the message got lost in sort of the noise of April Fool's Day.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
So this move to, dismiss is very... I mean, they're pulling a play from the, at least... from my own experience, the more recent political playbook, which is just downplay and
vilify,
ignore and
because
and vilify the opposing side, and then just wait for it all to blow over, because the news cycle is so rapid nowadays.
Yeah, I believe there was a Polygon article I saw. I didn't put it on the docket. Essentially trying to defend their own article, from Kotaku, I think, saying that the press is not your enemy. Which the fact that actually has to be said in modern times is scary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not just even a political statement, which, so many damn things these days that shouldn't be political statements are political statements anyway, because of how fragmented the political scene is in the United States. But the fact that the press is seen as an enemy is just mind-blowing to me. Even a entertainment niche industry, which, technically video gaming is a niche of the entertainment industry. Having to say that the press is not the enemy there is just astonishing.
Yeah. I agree with you.
And this is probably why we don't see much investigative journalism, because it's so much safer to just regurgitate press releases over and over again, right? Or have opinion pieces and not go as in depth. Plus, this BioWare article had to take ages to put together. He had to have been writing this for at least an hour.
At least an hour. Yeah.
I'm kind of joking though, but at the same time, you run into some of the gaming blogs, or what they the news sites that use the term blog as a defensive shield whenever criticism is placed against them, and there's so many just nonsense sentences or just typos that should have been caught by an editor, but because it pretty much goes straight from the writer to the website, because the news cycle is so quick, and you have to get out there first to get that sweet ad revenue, right?
Oh yeah.
That the idea of an investigative journalism, investigative journalist in gaming is almost as rare as a game critic. Damn, I miss Total Biscuit.
Me too, buddy. Me too. In all, just like thinking about it, I wonder how many weeks it probably took him to cultivate this. Like, Jason Schreier is one of the few video game journalists whose name I know and whose work I'm familiar with and who does stuff like this. But cultivating something like this would have taken probably weeks, if not months, to set up with various contacts and, coax or convince people that it's okay to, come and tell their story. He will, protect their identities and things like that. All the time to sit down and do the interviews and the research. I want to see all the notes about the stuff that didn't go into the article.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, kind of just skimming it again, and just so much interview work, so much time involved. I kind of wish that he wasn't at Kotaku, so, I would run into his work more often, because I try to avoid Kotaku just because there's so much trash on there.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, generally I'm not a big fan of Kotaku. But
it's just... I think this is a lesson that isn't for the AAA gaming industry. But that's also what I really wanted to talk about, was kind of this disconnect of wanting to learn, but also wanting to be an industry leader. Well, those who don't adapt die, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And adaptation is part, learning.
I feel sad for the people that work at BioWare.
Don't worry, they won't be working there long.
Ooh.
Cold?
Sick burn. Sick burn. Too soon. Too soon.
Or too early. I
Yes.
really don't see a future for BioWare. The future is cloudy at best.
I think
If BioWare
if
if BioWare continues to exist past 2020, they're going to be the Anthem development team. They're not going to be a game developer anymore. They're going to be working on the live services, and that's it.
Yeah. I think if they knock it out of the park with the next Dragon Age, then they'll... I was going to say they'll be alright. They'll have a better chance at being alright. But if that's not a success, then yeah, they're...
Yeah,
they'll be
but
done.
the thing is that this is 2 games in a row that they followed the same formula of just flapping about for, half the development time and then just crunch the last half. What talent they do have remaining has to be feeling some serious burnout by this point.
Yeah.
I really think that BioWare is going to see a severe brain drain before too long, where they're just they've worked their developers to death, and this is also an industry problem. Just this culture of your employees being this infinite disposable resource. Well, the kids that are growing up today, learning how games are made, I think they're going to be a lot more hesitant to get into the field. Or if they do get into the field, they're going to be the indie developers of tomorrow. I think the idea of a AAA studio is going to be a lot more difficult to sustain. I'm not going to say it's impossible, because there is the money there to throw at it. But it's going to be tougher for them. Because these horror stories are way, way too frequent for anyone that's serious about gaming to really want to take part. And an artistic medium where you're scaring off those who are the most enthusiastic and have the most heart is just a very dull, gray scene. Also known as the AAA gaming industry. Or are we back to brown? What's the color palette today?
Yes.
But you know what I'm saying, that we're not going to see as much of a vibrant innovation. Partly just due to just the absolutely absurd budget, so they have to play it safe. But at the same time, they're scaring away the artist. They're scaring away the talent. Or the most talented, the most enthusiastic. So it's going to be more of a factory production. And it's going to, but it's going to likely enrich the indie gaming scene and the AA scene, where there's just going to be people that are so scared to go into these massive corporations that, they'll be more willing to join these smaller groups. At least until they get acquired.
Yeah. So a lot of these problems that you're talking about, at least in America, I can't speak to a lot of European countries that have better employee protections and stuff, but at least in America, I mean, this is a problem not just in the games industry.
Yeah, well, it's
getting worse everywhere.
Yeah, well, we had an item on the docket a couple weeks ago about Dwarf Fortress going to Steam, mostly just due to healthcare. And the idea that your healthcare is linked directly to your job. And boy, this is going to get into a political discussion possibly very quickly. But the idea that your healthcare is linked to your job makes it very tough to be able to leave your job, because you're losing all your benefits along with it.
Yeah. And in the United States, most employers, you have to work for a minimum amount of time. It varies by employer and by industry, but you have to be at a new job for a certain period of time before you can even get health insurance through your job. So there's a period in there where that you won't have any benefits, any insurance.
Yeah, in
In
healthcare,
the United States, you might as well just die.
yeah, and the healthcare in the United States is absurdly expensive.
Yep. Don't even get me started on that.
Well, it's not like one of us has recently had a health problem.
Yeah. Multiple health problems.
But hey, you get to go and get your head fucked by a machine every so often.
Yep. I gotta go back next month. My
got another date?
Yeah. Let's see. What was it? This one is with a different machine. I get to look at flashing lights and push buttons. The lining around my ocular nerve is too thin in a certain one or two spots, so they have to test me to see if it's an early indicator for glaucoma.
Oh, fun.
Which runs in my family. So let me pile on another issue.
Why don't we just kill you at this point?
I might as well just die. Yeah.
I would say sell you for parts, but
Nobody wants my spare parts. Actually, my kidneys are really good. My kidneys are functioning above average. But my pancreas is broken. My eyes are broken. I think my heart's okay. For now. I have too many allergies.
yeah, sinuses are completely broken.
Yeah, my sinuses are broken.
Yeah, well,
I'm not sure if my lungs are broken or if they just malfunction because of my sinuses.
I can't risk it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're broken. Hey, you're as broken as the healthcare system.
Unfortunately, I don't have the benefits, though, of being on the receiving end of all of the money that flows into our broken healthcare system. All the detriments and none of the benefits. My penis still works fine. I've got that going for me, which is nice. Although I'm not sure if you can donate that after you die. Probably not. I don't want to Google that right now. Feels like a very risky Google.
Never talked to you before, but let's move on.
Indeed, let's do that.
So, the next up is, well, our last news topic. Valve focusing on larger artifact issues, not shipping updates in the immediate future. So, speaking of hot messes, Artifact,
Yeah.
Fell on its face, I think is the best way to say it.
Yeah, failed to launch.
Oh no!
It was like one of those...
No, it launched. It's one of those things. It's like now I can't remember what space industry it is since I already brought up the space race, but it's like the stock news footage of the rocket that's about to launch. It starts
and it falls over and blows up.
Yeah, falls over and then blows up.
Yeah, I was thinking of like a gif of like, the start of a horse race or something. The horse comes out of the gate, immediately falls down, trips and falls down.
And then breaks its neck.
Yeah, but your exploding rocket analogy is better.
Yeah, well, Artifact was a bit of a flash in the pan, wasn't it?
Indeed.
So, basically, Valve had an announcement. And we'll just read that and then we'll kind of comment as we go. Let's see.
Sure.
It was earlier this month, Valve announced that they laid off Richard Garfield among 12 other employees from the Artifact team. The latest Steam announcement is a brief, morose statement on the state of Artifact. When we launched Artifact, we expected it would be the beginning of a long journey that would lay the foundation for years to come. Our plan was to immediately dive into the normal strategy of shipping a series of updates driven by the dialogue of community members that the community members were having with each other and us. Obviously, things did not turn out as we hoped. I'm sorry, but...
Obviously.
Artifact remains the largest discrepancy between our expectations and how one of our games... for how one of our games would be received and the actual outcome. Also, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But we don't think that players misunderstood our game or that they're playing it wrong. Artifact now represents an opportunity for us to improve our craft and use that knowledge to build better games. Since launch...
I like that statement.
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry, I like that statement.
Yeah, this is the opposite of what BioWare did.
Yeah. You know, they're not, like, directly saying it, but essentially what they're saying is, like...
We
messed up, and now we're gonna try and fix it, instead of just abandoning this or blaming you guys for our problems.
Yeah.
Which is nice to hear. We don't hear that very often.
Yeah, actually, not only accepting blame, but learning from it. This is pretty much what I was talking about during the BioWare discussion. A game developer that not only accepts their faults, but learns from them. It doesn't code it in PR speak. Since launch, we've been looking carefully at how players interact with the game as well as gathering feedback. It became clear that there was a deep-rooted issues with the game and that our original update strategy of releasing new features and cards would be insufficient to address them. Instead, we believe the correct course of action is to take larger steps to re-examine the decisions we made along the way regarding the game design, the economy, the social experience of the game, and more. What does this mean? Moving forward, we'll be heads down, focusing on addressing these larger issues instead of shipping updates. While we expect the process of experimentation and development to take a significant amount of time, we're excited to tackle this challenge. We will get back to you as soon as we're ready. And that's the end of the statement. I mean, for one, they're not abandoning this, which honestly, I expected one of two things. Valve just to cut their losses or to make it free to play and just to turn it loose.
Yeah.
Now, the fact that
I was expecting the second one.
Yeah. Now, the fact that they cut, their lead designer, says one of either two things to me. Either they're, going to completely change course and that, he wasn't relevant anymore. Well, I should say, that's what it says to me. The other one was what's already been dismissed, is that they were going to just cut the game loose. So I think we're going to be seeing a very different Artifact in the future. Now, the question is time frame, because, Valve time is a thing.
Yeah. I like how they, too, were like, yeah, this is going to take a significant amount of time.
Yeah,
so just
I think they're essentially saying they're going back to the drawing board for this. And I think they're going to completely rebuild the game from scratch. I'll be shocked to see, much of the launch version of Artifact remaining in Artifact 2.0 or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Trying to think of what's the next step from an Artifact? Relic. It's gonna be a Relic.
I think Relic. I think Relic would be upset about Valve naming their game Relic. It's like, wait a damn minute here.
Yeah. As long as it's not a hidden relic.
Well, he's been hiding pretty good lately.
Yeah.
Gonna have to go dig him up, I guess.
Yeah, been a while since we've heard anything from him.
Yeah, but...
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, he was a busy kid.
Indeed.
Yeah, but...
and he actually is a kid.
Mm-hmm. Or at least he was. But to be fair, you could say that about anyone.
Yes. Can do that.
But Valve had a lot of serious problems with the Artifact. For one, it was a long-form card game, which I know that sounds, what's so bad about that? Well, the game could get into just a slog. And it was also very hard to really keep track of things as a viewer of the game. I tried watching a bit of it, and I had no idea what the hell was going on. So, that's pretty much the Dota experience.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I've seen a few rounds played, and I think I kind of get the very basics of it, and it's much more hectic than a lot of other card games. But, you know, they did do something a little bit different with it, so...
Mm-hmm. I mean, they were trying to innovate, but at the same time, they were focused on essentially trying to recreate Magic the Gathering, where all the cards have a direct monetary value, and we're going through the Steam marketplace. And on launch, there was actually no way to get cards for free. You had to buy in more, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Which, that was kind of, the first real drop was when people realized, oh, well, there's no way to actually play the game without just forking over more money. Well, it's going to be a pot of whales fighting one another. So that happened. Then the price of cards it was just astronomical. It was something like, $300 some to get the entire set on launch.
Yeah, it was nearly $400 to get the whole set. And
that's before you even consider expansions, which would fluctuate wildly because the Steam marketplace, there was no set way to do things. And when the launch version had no way to generate cards, well, you're kind of screwed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, literally pay to win. But like I said, they were trying to build essentially Magic the Gathering as a trading card game. And it just didn't work for them. So the fact that they're, learning this lesson, I think it really says a lot about Valve's corporate structure or corporate culture.
Yeah, aside from the fact that they never assign real people to take care of anything that they should, they do generally seem to have a pretty good handle on at least the public-facing, aspect of this. They will own up to mistakes. They will say that they're going to improve, and sometimes they even make a little effort.
Yeah, it's just that's kind of also the flip side of Valve's corporate culture is where it's so flat. Sometimes you get a situation where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing.
Or that there is a left hand at all.
Mm-hmm. And then Gabe has to come in and lend a hand. Huh?
Indeed. He can lend me his hand at any point in time. Wink. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess this is going to be just kind of a wait and see what they do. So I guess be back in 2024.
Oh man, that's you're lowballing it. I was thinking at least 2036.
Well, let's go to Valve time. Let's see. Valve time, September 30th, 2013, November 16th, 2004. Or sorry, 2003 to 2004. So a year. See, every 3 months, every few years for Half-Life episodes. Early 2008, late summer 2008, early November 2008, November 18th, 2008, release of Left 4 Dead. Let's see, later this year, 2011, then delayed to Q1 2012, July 9th, 2013, Dota 2. So, yeah, but sometimes there's a reverse Valve time, occasionally. That list is a lot shorter. But Valve also has, for now, at least, the ability to just print money, so they could just sit and percolate on this for a while. And maybe they'll actually fix this. If they make it a living card game and get rid of the marketplace, I think that's a huge step forward. Or if they make it where you don't have to buy the cards. But that's kind of getting away from what they originally wanted, was something to essentially fuel the market. This is just really a case of Valve not learning from Diablo. I mean, we talked about BioWare wanting to learn from Diablo. Valve didn't learn from Diablo.
With the real marketplace Or with the marketplace, you mean? Yeah. I like the idea of a marketplace, but
the problem is that
the implementation has always suffered.
The problem is that it impacts the core game loop, and it interferes with it. For Diablo, they had it where they had the loot system pretty much just go wild, so it was trying to fuel the market with just, okay, well, you're playing this class, well, have a smaller chance of getting good loot for it because the entire loot system was open. Because the idea behind it was, okay, well, if you didn't get loot for your character, you could sell what you got and buy something else. Well, isn't the entire point of a loot-based game to get neat stuff by drops? I mean, if they wanted to go play Spreadsheet Simulator, EVA's already been development for quite a while.
Yeah. It's quite a long ways down the development pipeline. It's been out for over 10 years now.
But Artifact suffered the same fate, that they had this neat idea of trying to assign real monetary value. And, well, we have it on the show notes, kind of the flip side of this, where Hearthstone has gone absolutely hog wild with expansion packs, but also just retiring cards, and that's money down the drain. Artifact was trying to fix that by having a monetary value so you could recoup some cards or some money from your cards, or even if you get lucky on a card draw, actually make money back because, you got a duplicate of a very powerful rare. Well, you don't need the secondary one. In Hearthstone, you would just disenchant it for dust to make something else. Well, in this, if everything worked as Valve originally intended, you could sell it, get a little bit of Steam funds, you either buy more card packs and get something else, or go buy another game because it's in the Steam ecosystem. So, that was the idea of things, but because they corrupted their core game loop by introducing the marketplace, it just, people were so put off by it that it just never was going to work. That, and also, once you enter money into the situation, things get pay to win, and people are turned off by that, at least for now. I hope for a very long time, but let's be perfectly honest here. Kids growing up with mobile games, I think the days are numbered for when pay to win is going to be considered a dirty phrase.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm going to do my part to teach my son about real video games. Although he does play some mobile games. Although nothing that has, I screen all of those games. There's nothing that has any microtransactions or a store or anything like that.
Yet.
But, yeah. Yet.
Oh, well, that got depressing.
It did. But that's okay. Are we ready to...
Yeah, I think that's...
To scoot on over to our next...
Yep.
Okie dokie. So, for Community Corner, we did not receive anything other than some very funny, poorly translated spam in our email inbox. But that's okay, because there's game night to talk about. We played Tabletop this previous week. We specifically played King of Tokyo instead of just, showing up and winding up playing Uno for 2 hours. Which is not a bad thing, but it's good to go into these things with a plan. The intent is to play Tabletop again this coming week, but we're going to be playing Flashpoint Fire Rescue, which is a cooperative game where each of the players is a firefighter, and you're trying to rescue people from a burning building and fight the fire. Ghost Shark has got the most experience with this game. I believe we've played it once before, and he taught us all how to play. So the idea is that he will show up and sort of help refresh us on how to play. I did put a link to the Steam
workshop.
Was the Steamworks workshop file for it? So if you have Tabletop and you want to check it out and familiarize yourself with it and the rules a little bit beforehand, you can do that. So we'll be doing that this coming week. We'll We've talked about several different things for the next week. There's been a couple of other tabletop suggestions in Discord. Someone mentioned doing a Black Ops multiplayer night. And when I say someone, I mean Kyle. Doing Black Ops multiplayer one night, and depending on how many people showed up, either doing zombies or he mentioned potentially doing 3v3 teams. But we would just see. I didn't hear any yays or nays on that from anybody else when that was mentioned. So, not quite sure on that. But for next week, the intent is to play Flashpoint Fire Rescue. And there will be a backup game for tabletop in case that does not happen. Maybe because not enough people show up to play it, or Ghost is unable to make it to help refresh us all. But we'll have a backup tabletop simulator game. I've got a few other cooperative games that are pretty easy to teach that I've got sort of in reserve as a backup game. So we'll go with one of those. Probably, dang it, I forgot the name. Right off the top of my head. Secret Desert? Hidden Desert? Hidden Island?
Forbidden.
It's a Forbidden Island. Yeah, it's a cooperative treasure hunting game. And essentially you are trying to work together as a team, get all the treasure before the island sinks into the ocean. It's a fun little game. Pretty simple to learn how to play. So, yeah. Did we have any tweets? I didn't check it out.
No, there were no tweets. Earlier. So if you wish to add to our tweet total and actually get it in the, well, I guess technically it would still be positive, but yeah, get it above 0, you could do so, VGL Podcast, on the Twitter, or email us. And we promise it won't go into the spam folder with all the, I think it's Chinese?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's definitely
kanji.
I don't know what the name is. Kanji? Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's Chinese. Essentially, Chinese looks like a bunch of little houses.
Gotcha.
But we promise it won't go into the foreign spam filter. We think.
Unless you send us an email in Chinese. It's about wanting to be business partners and giving us lots of money.
Yeah.
Or dating
yeah.
us.
Well, there's a different link if you want to give us a bunch of money. So, Discovery Queue real quick.
Yeah, let's do a Discovery Queue.
All right. Well, I already have my Discovery Queue up, and I got one immediately. But then again, I was kind of cheating because I was looking at my Discovery Queue, the links or the thumbnails on it. And, I saw this up immediately. Risk of Rain 2. A roguelike, which I would actually say roguelite, procedurally generated, multiplayer platformer. The original Risk of Rain, I played a little bit of it, but it just didn't really click for me. But the second one, they went full 3D. And actually, it has a very interesting art style. It's kind of a low poly art style on the characters, but the world isn't. And it has some sort of shading that I really can't place on the all the screenshots. It's kind of like the cell shading, only without the harsh outlines. It's very stylistic and very pretty. But yeah, that's one to look out for. It's in early access right now. Have you got your queue up?
Yeah, I went through a couple of crap games, and I'm looking at this trying to figure it out. I'll just paste the link in. It's called Willowbrook Post, story-based job management game. It says, take care of your parents' post office following their unexpected departure and return to your childhood home in the quaint countryside village of Willowbrook. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Papers, please.
I mean, it's not. I mean, that's not. Condemning it, saying papers, please. It's kind of a shorthand.
Yeah, looks like a lot of paperwork, checking, and making sure things are right.
But also some management going on.
In. Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of some sort of. I mean, there's some home stuff here. Maybe some sort of underlying story or an exploration of the town, perhaps. It's hard to say. But it looks neat. I mean, I'll have to say, I don't think I've seen anything quite like this. So, it's not all that expensive either. It's on a launch sale. that lasts for only 12 more hours. So I guess that'll be done by the time we're done talking.
Mm-hmm.
But it's right now it's only $7. It looks like it'll be 10 once the sale's over. Still not too expensive.
Well, I got my second game is also very interesting. Outward. Open world RPG meets survival game.
Huh.
Which we haven't actually really seen, have we?
Open world RPG meets survival.
I mean, a full-on RPG.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Planet Explorers had some mix.
Well, here's the little blurb.
But...
No remarkable journey is achieved without great effort. Outward is an open-world RPG where the cold of night or an infected wound can be as dangerous as a predator lurking in the dark. Explore the vast world of Arari. Embark on memorable adventures alone or with your friends. So, open world RPG beats survival with co-op. It's published by Deep Silver. What's the pedigree on the developer, though? Looks like the developer is like a subsidiary, perhaps. So, definitely interesting.
That sounds interesting.
It's fully out. It's a $40 game, though. So, yeah, it's a little much to bite off of, but for a complete unknown, I should say.
Yeah.
But
I got another one.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Interesting. I would say it's one to keep an eye on. Maybe wishlist and check it out later.
Yeah. So I got one that looks interesting. Landinar Into the Void. I'm just gonna read you the first line of this. Imagine Freelancer as a top-down RPG. All right, I'm in.
Yeah, I have this on my wish list. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure this popped up on my Discovery queue before.
If it did, I don't.
This looks familiar.
But...
This looks too familiar.
Yeah, but I mean, open world space RPG. There's shipbuilding elements. Not the hugest fan of the top-down stuff, but hey, I can still dig it. Especially if they're comparing it to Freelancer. I'm in. How much is it? $16. Okay, that's a little out of impulse buy range for me, but I will definitely keep an eye on that one.
Well, here's one that's definitely an impulse buy range, and this is interesting. Let me drop it in the show notes so you could take a look-see at this. It's called Unheard. I kind of like the idea of reading the little blurbs on this. What if you could hear every word spoken at a crime scene? Acoustic detectives wanted for testing a new device. Return orally to crime scenes and use the voices you hear to identify potential suspects and solve the mysteries. What is it that's connecting these seemingly unrelated, and it's cut off, so I'm assuming crimes. So it's a mystery game where you hear everything and you have to try to piece together the story. It looks like it's a translated game because there's a lot of, the two screenshots are the same, are very similar, only different languages, but very interesting. Let's see, it's by Next Studios, who have done a couple fairly decent games. I mean, nothing amazing, but this is a $5 game. So
right.
I mean, I would say that was an impulse buy range, especially if you like your mystery games.
Some of this looks good, and some of it does not. Star's End. Popping the link over right now. Star's End is a multiplayer sci-fi survival game set hundreds of years in the future and a star system colonized by humans. Come and join us for crafting, construction, missions, and PvP on the wild frontier. It's got like a space cowboy feel to it. Not quite Firefly from the look of the screenshots. It doesn't quite look that gritty. But, I mean, I'm a sucker for this kind of game. So, part of me is like, ooh, but then part of me is also like, oh, another one? So I don't know.
Eventually one of them has to be excellent, right? There's something very low rent about the models, but I can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. If the gameplay's good, I wouldn't give a shit about that.
They're using a lot of pre-bought assets.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, it looks like pre-bought assets, which is fine. That's one of the things that they exist for.
Yeah, I would say the gun is probably the big giveaway on some of these. It just looks like it's lacking too much detail. That's what's making it feel so low rent. But also, some of the screenshots where they show a lot of interior. Oh, the scene with the campfire one. Oh, just look how much low detail that is. All right.
Where are you, campfire? There you are. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That doesn't bode well.
That is pretty... No. So, because of my own interests, I'll, watch this a little bit, but...
Mm-hmm. Well, here's one for a certain someone out there. Imperator Rome. The newest green strategy from Paradox Interactive. I mean, is there anything that needs to be said about this, right? Yeah, it's a Roman grand strategy game, so that is interesting. Let's see, it's set in the centuries from Alexander's successor's empire in the east to the foundation of the Roman Empire, so pre-Roman actually. So that's an interesting time frame.
Build Rome in a day.
In an afternoon. Or in several afternoons.
Yeah. Alright, that's my whole queue done. I got 3 games out of it.
I'm halfway through my queue.
Okay.
And I'm adding another one. Wolfenstein Young Blood. I mean, anything need to be said there?
I don't think so. I remember this from E3. It's the one with the sisters, right?
I think so. Let's see, Youngblood's the first modern... It's co-op, though. So that's an interesting twist.
Yeah, team up with a friend or play solo as one of BJ Blazkowicz's twin daughters and wield a powerful arsenal of new weapons, gadgets, and abilities.
Makes me wonder what they're going to be named with BJ, right? As the father's name?
Yeah.
You think about that
I'm
while...
trying to think of, Yeah.
Let's see. Another interesting one immediately after it. See, this is what happens when you pollute your wish list. You get trash, I get treasures. Nova Drift.
I got a few good ones.
Nova Drift distills the mechanical depth of an action RPG into classic arcade space combat. It looks interesting, doesn't it? Has a very neon-esque feel to everything. Early access at $15 is probably a bit much, but it really depends on where they go with this. They're calling it a roguelite, so hey, they got the proper terminology. So a roguelite space shooter.
Yay, they did it.
Already 120 different modular upgrades to progress and expand arsenal. So there's some depth there, and they have a pretty decent looking roadmap going all the way through to the end of the year to next year. So if the game takes off, I'm not sure if it has to take off, but it looks like they have a long planned development cycle ahead of them. So yeah, interesting. Let's see what in the... Okay, I'm going to put this on here just because it looks weird. I'm not sure what this is, but No Time to Relax. No Time to Relax is a life simulation game where up to 4 players online or locally compete against each other in the ultimate game of life. And trains. There's trains.
Trains are life.
Well, when you live near a train track. Actually, trains are chugga chugga and woo woo. Maybe I should just give you my discovery keys from now on. Right?
I'm still looking for their names, the sisters' names. I'm sure that they're around here somewhere.
Okay, I think the train is gone. Essentially, this is a life sim board game brought to PC. I'm not sure if it's an actual physical board game or not. I haven't searched it yet, but essentially it's just trying to screw over your friends and be more successful than them, which is interesting. Not sure how much depth is in it, but it's early access title right at the $14 price tag. Let's see. Fully playable and stable with all features in the About Game section to have been implemented, except for the PC player. So right now, if you don't have friends, well, you're screwed. But it looks like they're planning on adding AI. And they're going to be adding some randomization for more long-term gameplay. So yeah, something to keep an eye on. Ooh. I hit Assassin's Creed 3, but it's rated mostly negative. What's going on here?
Didn't they change something in it? In the update, they pulled something out of it. I don't remember. They changed something about it on the most recent update.
Yeah, I'm not going to bother adding it, but yeah.
Right.
Oh!
Their name...
sorry, go ahead.
Their names are Jessica and Sophia Blaskowitz.
I saw this on them talking about it on Crane Crowbar. Hypnospace Outlaw. Greetings, Enforcer, and thank you for enlisting in the Hypnospace Patrol Department. As the world falls into slumber, Hypnospace becomes a bustling global village. These virtual streets aren't going to police themselves. Essentially, you're an internet censor and you're browsing around this absolutely massive fake internet that the game designers created, with little hidden stories and all sorts of neat things to find. And it's essentially a simulation of like circa late 90s, early 2000s internet. So a lot of crappy JPEGs and GIFs and weird humor. It's a very interesting looking game, and I thought I wishlisted it, but I guess not. It's one of those games that looking at those screenshots does not do it justice. And I'm not sure if the trailer does it either. Looks like the trailer's like a 90s infomercial. But
Gotcha.
You're just looking at this like, what the fuck, right?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. Oh, this game.
Yeah.
I've heard some people talk about
This
this.
is supposed to be a really
podcasts I
interesting
listen to.
game.
Yeah.
Like I said, you play essentially an internet censor or an internet police officer with essentially an entire fake internet to police. And there's some stuff going on behind the scenes as well, from what I understand. Yeah, it's very highly rated. But it's also...
Yeah, I've heard a lot of
It's
really good things about
99% for 318 user reviews. I mean, that says something. If this is an interesting kind of niche thing for you, like 90s, late 90s, early 2000s internet with a story attached to it as well, I would say it's definitely worth a buy. It is a bit expensive for what it is, $20.
Yeah.
But yeah. Maybe you should have done another Discovery queue.
Maybe. I spent a while looking for their names, those girls' names, and I found them, but there's nothing like funny or jokey. You know, Jessica and Sophia.
Maybe their middle name makes a interesting thing. Steel Division 2.
Yeah.
A historically accurate World War II real-time strategy game set on the Eastern Front. Features one-to-one scaled turn-based army management and real-time tactical battles with thousands of men at your order. So, yes for you? Right?
Quite possibly. Definitely a yes for Cube. He plays games like that all the time.
Yeah, I don't know the Steel Division series. I mean, this is the second one in it, but a very interesting one. That's definitely one to keep an eye on. And last one for me is... What in the world? Okay, this is weird enough. I have to add it. Why don't I just copy and paste my entire Discovery queue next time, right? It'd be shorter. East Shade. You are a traveling painter exploring the island Eastshade. Capture the world on canvas using your artist easel. Talk to inhabitants to learn about their lives, make friends, and help those in need. Visit cities, scale summits, unearth mysteries, and discover forgotten places. So, essentially a painting game meets just open world discovery game? Or walking simulator?
Yeah, it sounds the way it's tagged as exploration, relaxing, open world atmospheric.
Yeah, with the expanded ones. Beautiful adventure, first-person, single-player, colorful, indie, casual, interactive fiction, walking simulator RPG. That is a really strange game. Let's see. One of the reviews: the feel of a Bethesda game with its own unique identity and without combat. This is a must-own for anyone that wants a charming game with a unique atmosphere and interesting characters. The main problem so far is that there's a few bugs that could be, such as falling through the map, that could break immersion. So yeah, definitely a Bethesda game. Yeah, definitely not for everyone, but if this is your jam, it's $25, but you know, there's not many games like this, so maybe that would be worth it. But I have to say that the game is fucking beautiful. Take a look at that third to last screenshot. Or even like the last three.
Yeah, those are some very beautiful stills.
That's stunning. Now the question is, how does it look moving, right?
Oh, there's anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So that's my queue. I think I skipped like 2 games in my entire queue.
Yeah, you had 10 show up on your thing. On your queue.
Yeah, and I mentioned 11 of them because I mentioned Assassin's Creed. So, yeah, I think I'm going to have a lot to choose from for the end of the year awards, huh?
Yeah. Hey, you caught a good one, though. That's good. I'm very happy for you, Rach. And I got a few. I'm always happy if I get 2 or 3 games out of a queue. I got 3. I'm happy with that. All right, buddy. Well, why don't you hit him with the socials?
Well, I've been Caffeine Rage. You can find me over on the YouTube, Gaming with Caffeine Rage. You can find me on Twitter, Gaming with CR, and maybe eventually you can find me on Twitch, Caffeine_Rage. And you have been
Gaming Psychologist. You can find me over on the YouTubes by searching for Gaming Psychologist. Follow me on Twitter at JMA4707. And you can be my friend on Steam by sending your friend request to JR34707. Also want to give a quick shout out to a couple of people who have recently subbed to me on YouTube. I guess that's where you consume the podcast because that's the only thing that comes out on there. But hello, new YouTube subscribers. Welcome. Come join our Discord. That would be cool. Thanks. I love you.
And if you wish to let them know exactly what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the password for this week is pancakes. Pancakes.
Pancakes.
Forbidden food for you now.
Indeed, but now I want some.
Well, that's the plan for tomorrow's breakfast. And nothing really jumped out at me as a word from my word list, so pancakes it is. I think pancakes with some maple syrup. Maybe some sliced banana instead.
No. Maple syrup, butter.
Oh, trust me. With how much butter I put in my pancakes, you don't need butter.
I beg to differ. Challenge accepted.
Oh, so you want me to kill you? Okay.
Go for it.
Death by pancake?
Yes, I can handle that death.
What I can handle is also the end of the show chatter. Once again, you could reach us at vglpodcast@gmail.com with your letters, voicemails, gaming-related topics, or just tweet them to us, VGL Podcasts. Another link you should also check out is our Patreon, patreon.com/VGL Podcast. Our lovely patrons have paid for our website, vglpodcast.podbean.com, where you can find the show notes with pretty much my entire discovery queue. Links to the articles we've discussed, And of course, links to all our stuff online as well as our Discord. But if you're not interested in an RSS feed, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, or your podcatcher of choice. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod, and our Discovery Cube music is Doobly Doo by the same artist. You can find his work at incompetech.com, and
as always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice. Bye-bye now.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.